Thank you for listening to Footnotes, a Fellowship Mosaic podcast. This is a space for us to dig deeper into Scripture, what is happening in our community and culture, and continue the conversations we start on Saturday nights. We're excited to have you join us as we pursue truth, holiness, and redemption together.
Well, hello. Welcome back to Footnotes. Nick here, and we're continuing through our Psalms series at Mosaic right now. And we've been talking about how God gave us the Psalms as a way to really talk to Him and process our experience of the world with God, to invite God into the things that we're going through. And one of the things that has come up over and over again is the emotional life that gets expressed in the Psalms. As we're talking about joy, as we're talking about sadness, as we're talking about anger. And one of the questions that I wanted to talk a little bit about is the question of what is the role of emotion in the spiritual life. I've often heard different forms of this idea expressed, that you cannot trust your emotions, you cannot rely on them. And I want to ask the question, is that true? Is that correct, that emotions are unreliable? Often you'll hear people say facts, not feelings. And if that's true, what do we do with all the emotional expressions in the Scriptures? And how should we understand the emotions being expressed in the Psalms and how they work out in life? And a member of our body who has taught us at Mosaic a lot about this, has taught me personally this, and really has been a national voice on the issues of emotion and spirituality, is Dr. Gary Oliver. Dr. Oliver, he's a clinical psychologist, and he's been a part of the Promise Keepers movement, speaking nationally in a lot of different ways, trained therapist, thousands, I don't even know how many thousands of counseling hours he has. He's done a lot of work on the integration of emotions and spiritual formation, spiritual growth. And Dr. Oliver defines emotions as God-given responses that serve as internal indicators or signals, helping us understand what's happening in our inner and outer worlds. So an emotion is a physiological state that happens in our bodies and our brains. Emotions are something that you experience internally. They're actually pretty hard to define in a lot of ways, because it is it is felt with a whole lot of physiological reactions. Your heart can start racing. Your skin can become clammy. There's a lot of different things that happen when we feel emotions, but it's a state that happens in our body in responses to different things. And one of the things Dr. Oliver would often say is that emotions are morally neutral. Emotions are neither good nor bad, they simply are. It's a little bit like feeling hot or cold, okay? Is it when you suddenly start feeling chilled, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it's just a thing. It's just what your body's doing, okay? It's neither good nor bad. When I feel sad or angry or happy or nervous, that is neither good nor bad. It is simply an experience my body's having. Now, here's what Gary would teach is it is not so much what we feel that is the thing to be that can become a problem. It's how we respond or react to what we feel. Gary says it this way in his book. It's all about relationships. Emotions are not the problem. The problem is people's inability to be aware of, identify, clarify, understand, and manage their emotions. It's the thing that we do based on how we're feeling that can often become the problem. So let's go back to this original question. Can you trust your emotions? Or to put the question another way, do your emotions lie to you? Now, what's really interesting to me about the question, do your emotions lie to you, is in one sense, your emotions don't literally say anything. Emotions aren't verbal. Emotions don't give you words like, I'm a terrible person, or that person was mean to me. That's not what emotions do. Emotions happen at a much more foundational level than that is pre-verbal. That's something Gary would always say. Emotions are pre-verbal. Those words that we might say, like maybe in response to a feeling of shame, I might say, I'm an awful person. Or when I feel anger at whenever somebody pushes me, I might go, that person's a jerk. Those words are not the emotions themselves. Those words are how we are interpreting what happened based on how we feel. So the real question that we need to learn how to do is not to not feel the emotion. It's actually that we need to learn how to interpret rightly what the emotions are, what information the emotions are giving us. As Gary says in his book again, emotions are neither good nor bad, right nor wrong. It's how we handle them or allow them to handle us that makes them helpful or harmful, constructive or destructive. So, let's take an emotion like sadness, okay? Sadness is an emotion that people feel typically in response to grief or loss. When we lose something valuable to us, we begin to feel this thing called sadness. And it makes us move slowly. It makes it even hard to move sometimes. It makes us often tired. It is usually described as being down or low. Now, sadness is actually a gift from the Lord, because what sadness does is it causes us to stop when we've had a loss. It doesn't let us charge past the thing that we've lost, and it forces us to acknowledge something's wrong. Now, the next question becomes, what do I do in response to my sadness? Years ago, when our daughter was young, the movie Inside Out had just come out, which if you've been around me much, you know I love the movie Inside Out. And there was a fantastic article on a Christian website called the Gospel Coalition that was talking about how to use Inside Out to talk to your kids about emotion. And I found it so incredibly helpful. This article suggested that one of the things that emotions indicate is value. It points to the thing that's important to us. So joy usually tells us when I feel joy or happiness, it usually means I'm experiencing something valuable. Something that I cherish, I'm experiencing it. Sadness, usually, when I feel sad, it usually tells me, oh, I lost something valuable to me. Anger might say somebody is disrespecting my values. There's something that I value that's being trounced upon. Gary would say that anger is always a secondary emotion. Underneath anger is usually either frustration meaning I'm wanting something to happen and it's not happening. My plans, activities are being thwarted. Or there's hurt, I'm experiencing some kind of pain, or there's fear. And usually it is frustration, fear, or pain, hurt, that leads to anger. In keeping with the Inside Out characters, disgust is, man, that's the opposite of what I value. I'm facing something that is anti what I value, and fear is my values are threatened. These emotions often point to something that's important to us. And this is where being aware of our emotional life can be so powerful. Because Gary would say that emotions help give meaning and significance to our lives. We can't go through our life with everything having the same level of value. I don't value a hot dog at the same level that I value one of my family members. Okay, they should have different levels of value, and emotions often help tune me into what's most valuable to me. It helps me be aware of my values, and it helps give meaning to the things that are in my life. Now, you cannot healthily turn an emotion on and off when you experience it. In fact, in most of my life, one of the things that's been most damaging to me is when I felt an emotion I wasn't comfortable with. I tried to figure out how to make the feeling go away as quickly as I could. And that is usually, Gary would say, when you bury an emotion, you bury it alive, and it usually comes back in a really unhealthy way. So you can't turn off an emotion. You can't shut it down without doing real harm to yourself. But what you can do is over time begin to work on how you respond to your emotions and what are the things that you're going to value and cherish. And interestingly, over time, you'll become less controlled by your emotions. Emotions can become a gift that tell you what's valuable in your life and help you experience the deep meaning of life. So that, because this is what hopefully every emotionally healthy person would experience, when you're in the presence of something really beautiful and really good, you're going to feel deep joy. Don't we all want that? Don't we all want to feel joy when we're in the presence of something good, like a newborn child, or a beautiful family gathering, or the presence of God? We should also, as emotionally healthy people, be able to experience deep sadness in the face of loss. When a loved one dies, we need to be able to experience the sadness that goes with that, and that shows that we value the person. There is a healthy kind of anger that causes us to recognize when something is wrong and unjust, but we cannot let anger control us. The anger alerts us to the problem, and then and I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not going to go into I don't have the qualifications to go into all the depths of what all is happening in our brain. But once we have recognized and identified the emotion, we then can let other parts of our body and our mind get involved in the processing of responding and what comes next. So I bring all this together to say, what's happening with the Psalms is the Psalms are modeling for us how to do this work that Dr. Oliver is challenging us to do, to be able to identify and speak clearly about what we're feeling, to be able to process with God, okay, I'm feeling this, and this is why I'm feeling this. This is what happened. And then as we begin to share those emotions with God, we start to let God speak into the situation. And so we're not simply saying, this is what I feel, but we're also saying, God, I feel this so deeply. Now lead me in how I respond well. And so we're avoiding two extremes. Here's Nick's two ditches. Okay. With one extreme would be that we become emotionally numb people who shut down our emotions and don't allow them to have any part of our lives because we don't trust emotions. Emotions are bad. They're going to lie to you, right? What that would do is that would make us into shells of people who don't get to experience the fullness of life and all that it is. On the other hand, we don't want to be people who are controlled by our emotions, who when we feel a big emotion, sadness, anger, fear, we just start lashing out and reacting to our emotion in big ways without letting the other parts of how God made us, our reasoning, our prayer life, our spiritual development, our community, without letting all of them have a voice in how we respond as well. So what we want to do is we want to be aware of our emotions, name them, let them serve as indicators, to be cue lights, to say something important is happening here. Don't rush past it. Notice. Be aware. I find this happen. I need to do this so much in conflict because I tend to be very scared of conflict. So when conflict starts, I kind of feel this heart race panic thing that starts happening. And if I don't slow myself down and be aware, hey, Nick, you're panicking a little bit, I'll respond really poorly to the conflict. What I typically will do is I'll try to do anything to make the conflict end instead of actually engaging in a helpful process. I need to acknowledge, okay, that panic is happening because I feel threatened by this conflict. There probably is something real in my heart that's scared of conflicts. I'm scared of relationships being hurt. And I also know that conflict, when handled well, can deepen relationships. So I have to do that work of naming what's happening inside of me and beginning to bring that to the Lord. And sometimes this is all happening below the surface while you're in the middle of a conversation with another person. And so I think a goal for us as a body is for us to be able to become a little bit more mature in how we understand our emotions. Our emotions are part of how God fearfully and wonderfully made us. But they're not the only part of how God made us. They are a part of the whole person that God has made us to be, in His image to reflect Him. And so the Psalms, I think, are a great way that God has given us to walk through that. Another resource that I want to recommend that has been so helpful in our family is Peter Scazzero's book, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. That book is so powerful in walking through the role of emotions and how we can, as Jesus followers, submit our emotions to the Lord and begin to become more emotionally mature, developed people who respond well in situations. So I encourage you, as we are continuing in this Psalm series, as you're walking through life even this week, ask the question, what am I feeling? And what values in my life might those feelings be pointing me toward? What might they be telling me about what's happening inside of me? But also, how might I be misinterpreting them? if I'm feeling anger, might I be assigning untrue things to other people? It's not that the emotion is lying to me. It's that I am misreading the emotion. The emotion is simply alerting me that my body feels something. I then have to learn, being shaped by the Spirit, a mind that's been transformed, to look at the situation and evaluate well what's happening with God's help. So that's my hope and prayer, is that we'll continue to grow and to be a more emotionally healthy church as we walk together with the Lord. Thanks for listening. Have a great week.